Population pyramids are a graph, and they're a very useful tool in understanding demography. If you combine population pyramids with some of the other things I've talked about, the demographic transition, epidemiological transition, natural increase rates, and so on, they become excellent tools in really wrapping your head around what is going on and what has been going on in a society. If you take a look at these three population pyramids I have here, notice this. Females are in green, males are in blue. This is going to change a little bit on most population pyramids because what happens is males tend to be in blue, but females tend to be in a kind of pinkish color. And if you look at these three, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the United States, and Germany, Democratic Republic of Congo is in Central Africa, the United States is in North America, thank you very much, and Germany is in Europe. They don't look exactly the same. Can you tell that? They do not look exactly the same, and they tell you different things about these places. Population pyramids are divided into 5-year increments with the percentage of males on the left side and the percentage of females on the right side. So this is what I was talking about before, blue and kind of a pinkish color. This is the world in 2017. 2017, of course, is not yesterday, but it will do for our purposes. If you look on the left-hand side, you can see this is age in 5-year increments, 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19 years old, and so on. Then if you look along the bottom, you can see the percentage of the population that is either male or female in each one of those age categories. And you can see 0% is in the middle, and then 2, 4, 6, 8 going out in either direction. If we looked at the world, planet Earth, in 2017, and we examined the 20 to 24-year-old age category, notice that 4.1% of the population was male and 3.8% of the population female. So in that particular category, there were more males than females. Two things go along with population pyramids. Sex ratio is the first. This is the number of males to 100 females in a population. Okay, this is pegged to females, which means the number 100 is always going to represent females, and then the other number is going to represent males, and that's the thing that's going to change. There's slightly more males born, and this is discounting sex selection, so without sex selection, than females on the planet as a whole, just naturally. But females tend to live longer. So at birth on planet Earth, there are about 105 males born to every 100 females. So you can see 100 represents the females, 105 represents the males. Females are always on the right, males are always on the left, kind of like the population pyramid itself. On the planet as a whole, though, there are about 101.5 males to every 100 females, which means on planet Earth there are more males than there are females. However, in the richer, more industrialized, more economically developed countries in the world, like the United States, Europe, Japan, places like that, there's actually more females than males. In the US, it's about 97, or slightly more than 97 males to every 100 females. And actually in the United States, women begin to outnumber men around 30 years old. So at 30 years, you begin to have more females than males. And remember, there's 105 males to 100 females born. So the males begin to diminish, and by 30, women begin to take over, or females begin to take over. And by 65 years old, about 60% of the population is female. Why does this happen? Well, in general, and this is a generality, so don't get on me about it, but in general, males do the fighting in wars and in bars. And if there's a motorcycle screaming down your street right now, and it's going 80 miles an hour, and the person riding it is doing a wheelie, and they've got a helmet on so you can't see what they are, my bet is that that is a male under 30 years old. Anybody want to take that bet? Anybody think that it's an 80-year-old woman on a motorcycle screaming down the street going 80 miles an hour doing a wheelie? You know, not very likely. And, you know, that person who's doing that occasionally is going to make a mistake. And so males, especially when they're younger, tend to do things that press the boundaries of life. And occasionally they lose the bet. So let's look at some maps first. So this is a share of the population that's female in 1960. You can see the source is the World Bank, which is an excellent source for statistics. What I want you to see at first is this. Look up here at what was the Soviet Union at that time. And if you look down here, you can see the darker the blue, the higher the percentage of the population that's female. And as you go over here, you can see the darker the orange red, the higher the percentage that's male. Okay. Well, what's going on over here with what was the Soviet Union at that time, Germany, Austria, was this is the residual effect of World War II and all the men that got killed in the war. And you can see that Europe in general is kind of like that. Notice Ireland. In Ireland, they did not fight in the war. Ireland was not part of the World War II effort. With Portugal, what's going on is a lot of males immigrated and left. And I would argue that in the United States, that we are the way we are like that also because of residual of World War II. Now let's see what happens over some time here. So this is 1970, 1980. Notice how things begin to change in the Middle East over here. 1990. You can see 2000. 2010, and 2017. And in a way, the Russians never really recovered from World War II. And the population still skews very heavily female. What's going on over here in the Middle East and Equatorial Guinea? What this is about is men immigrating in there to work in either the oil industry or the supportive industries surrounding the oil industry. Now let's look at sex ratio at birth. Now this is 1962. I'm dealing with the statistics that I have. So as we go further to the right, okay, as you're looking to the right, you can see this is sex ratio at birth is measured as number of newborn boys for every 100 newborn girls. Okay, so as we go to the right, it's increasing numbers of males being born to females. And notice the entire planet basically is more males being born than females. But notice 1977, 1987, look what happens in China. 1997, notice in South Asia what's happening. 2017. So what's going on almost certainly with China and with India and Pakistan and Uzbekistan is probably some version of sex selection for a variety of reasons. So they're selecting for males. In other words, a woman becomes pregnant, they do a sonogram, they determine that it's going to be a female, and they abort it. The other thing is dependency ratio. This tells you the number or percentage of people in a society who are too young or too old to work compared to the number or percentage of people in their productive years. Now, this is a generality, but it's a useful one. There are lots of 75-year-olds who continue to work and do a great job and work really hard. But generally, and these are kind of UN ways of looking at things, there are three groups. The 0 to 14-year-old category, the 15 to 64-year-old category, and then the 65 and older category. The first and the third categories, so 0 to 14 and 65 and older, are generally considered to be dependent, which means they have to at least be partially supported by someone else, whereas the 15 to 64 is considered independent, which means they can support themselves and generally do. So dependency ratio and the demographic transition. All right, so take a look at this. We remember the demographic transition, which is on the top, stage 1, 2, 3, 4, and this has the theoretical stage 5 in it. Now look down along the bottom and you can see the shapes of the population pyramids. So if you look stage 1, this was the United Kingdom in 1760, right at the outset of the Industrial Revolution. Today, there is no country there, but you can see it says Amazonian tribes because there are some people who do not have connections with much of the rest of the world. We call them uncontacted or only marginally contacted people who are still living in very traditional ways. And you can see the shape of the pyramid. Lots of people being born, but they don't live very long. Then in stage 2, notice the pyramid really begins to look like a pyramid. This was the UK from 1760 to 1870. Where the Industrial Revolution began. Today, Ethiopia, along with another number of other countries, have pyramids that look like that. Then stage 3, you can notice India is entering into stage 3. Notice that the size of the pyramid begin to taper in on the bottom, which indicates decreased number of children being born. This was the UK from 1870 to 1950. Then stage 4, you can see that this is UK today. The bottom of the pyramid is kind of like being pressed in. There's kind of a bulge in the middle. It's the post-1950 era for the UK. And they can see stage 5, look at what's happening with Russia. It almost looks like a fan. Almost no children being born. And a lot of people who are getting older. And of course, this would result in declining population. So with regard to dependency ratio, in stage 2, you have a broad base tapering to a point on the top of the pyramid, and it looks very much like a pyramid. In stage 3, the base begins to narrow, and you get kind of this columnar look, maybe some widening in the middle. Stage 4, the base definitely begins to narrow, and the middle is broader with a narrowing top. In stage 5, the base is very narrow, the middle is the widest part, and it tapers or flattens off on the top. So take a look here, Canada on the left-hand side that I mentioned before. Canada's definitely, stage 3 moving towards stage 4, but then compare that to Nigeria on the right-hand side. Definitely a stage 2 country, shaped very much like a pyramid. Then if you notice here, we've got the United States where we're kind of stage 3 moving towards stage 4. Notice along the bottom of our pyramid, there are now decreasing numbers of people being born. And notice Mexico, our neighbor to the south. Mexico is pulling out of stage 2 and moving into stage 3 as fewer people are being born. Notice now Pakistan, definitely a stage 2, very good. And you can see India has this decreasing number of people being born. Now the population is still very large, but if you go to India, and I've been to India, they are always concerned about Pakistan because the population is going up rapidly in Pakistan. And in India, it's beginning to slowly be controlled, even though the number is very, very large. They are moving out of stage 2 towards stage 3. And then look at these, China and Russia, very odd looking. You can see that right over in here with Russia, what's going on is, remember, this is this area I told you about before in the collapses of the Soviet Union when the crude death rates went up very rapidly. In China, there's a number of things going on. You have this group of people right in here who are the front end of the one-child policy. And then these are the people down here who are not being born because there was only one child being born, and there was a lot of sex selection towards male with the Chinese. So take one more look at these pyramids. You can see over on the left-hand side, that is definitely a stage 2. In the middle, we're stage 3, beginning to go towards stage 4, and then Germany definitely a stage 4.